There's a moment in every man's life when the universe stops him dead in his tracks. A moment that feels like the air has been vacuumed out of the room. A moment where your chest tightens and your mind tries to make sense of what just happened. It's that moment she pulls back, walks away, disconnects, or suddenly becomes distant. And deep down, she believes she knows exactly what you'll do next. She expects the panic. She expects the late-night messages. She expects the emotional spiral, the apologizing, the bargaining, the desperate attempt to win her back. She thinks you'll break like all the others. She thinks you'll chase because she believes she still owns a part of you. But here's the part she could never calculate, the part ancient Stoics, warriors and kings understood long before you were born. It's the moment a man realizes that the storm she created inside him is nothing compared to the storm he can command within himself. And instead of collapsing, instead of chasing, instead of surrendering your dignity for temporary validation, something deeper rises inside you, a silence that is not weakness but power, a calmness that is not passivity but clarity, a single word that rewires the entire dynamic. Nope. And that's when everything shifts. That's when the world pauses. That's when you finally understand that you never lose a woman by choosing self-respect. You only lose the version of yourself who accepted less than he deserved. So before we dive in, before we break down how this single shift flips the entire script, I want to welcome you, brother, to Stoic Blessing, where we sharpen men like blades. If you're ready to rise above reactivity, to reclaim your emotional control, to stop chasing what isn't aligned with your path, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications to become an official Stoic soldier, and drop this phrase in the comments to lock yourself into today's mindset. I choose myself. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. From the moment things began to crack between you two, she convinced herself she already knew the ending. Not because she's arrogant, not because she's evil, but because modern dating has trained her to expect a certain pattern from men, a pattern of emotional dependency dressed up as devotion. She expected you to chase because so many before you handed over their power the second they felt distance. She expected the flood of messages, the long paragraphs, the apologies you didn't even need to give, the desperation disguised as passion, the last-ditch efforts to fix things before she even had time to process her own feelings. Society conditioned her to believe that men crumble when affection is pulled away, that men panic when their source of validation is threatened, that men fall apart when they sense rejection. She thought you'd rush in to soothe her doubts, to patch the emotional holes, to prove that losing her would destroy you. She thought the relationship was the center of your universe, and she assumed her absence would collapse everything inside you. And on some level, it wasn't even personal. It was predictable. She expected you to react like a man who was afraid to be alone with his own mind, a man who needed her attention to feel grounded, a man who handed over his emotional steering wheel because he feared silence more than disrespect. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, is that you weren't built like that. You weren't wired for dependency. You weren't meant to bend or beg or chase anyone who mistook your presence for something they were entitled to. She thought you'd follow the script she'd seen 100 times, but you didn't, and that's exactly where the story changes. There's a quiet moment, subtle, almost invisible, where everything inside you shifts. It doesn't happen with fireworks or some dramatic epiphany. It happens in the calm after the emotional storm, when the noise finally fades and you sit alone with the truth. Maybe you were staring at your phone, debating whether to send that last message. Maybe you were replaying her words in your mind, wondering if you should have fought harder. Maybe you even walked around your apartment, pacing, trying to decide what move would hurt least. And then something clicked. A single breath, a pause, a sense of clarity cutting through the haze. You suddenly saw that chasing wasn't strength. It was self-abandonment. That trying to convince someone of your worth wasn't love. It was fear. And in that instant, almost without meaning to, you set the phone down, straightened your posture, and whispered the most honest response your soul could muster. Nope. It was the moment you chose yourself, the moment you stopped negotiating for love like your value was on sale. The moment you realized your peace mattered more than proving anything to someone who had already pulled away. And the power wasn't in what you said, it was in what you didn't say. You didn't argue, you didn't plead, you didn't chase, you didn't spin your identity around her reaction. Instead, you returned to center, to stillness, to that ancient masculine ground where emotions pass through you without dictating your next move. This wasn't coldness, this wasn't ego, this wasn't punishment. It was control, pure, disciplined, timeless control. The kind of control that Stoics wrote about, warriors lived by, and grounded men embody when life tests their character. In that silent, almost holy moment, you reclaimed your power, and she had absolutely no idea it happened. There's a strange kind of power in the word nope, because it isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, and it isn't emotional. It's steady. It's a boundary disguised as a whisper. It's the moment you stop pouring energy into something that's draining you. And the truth is, most men don't realize how powerful that shift is, because they've been conditioned to respond to emotional pressure with compliance. She pulls back, chase her. She gets distant, fix it. She hints at leaving, prove your worth. But when you say nope, you shatter the entire script. You break the pattern. You refuse to play the role of the panicked pursuer in a story she thought she controlled. And what makes it so potent is that you're not saying nope out of anger or resentment. You're saying it out of self-respect. You're not rejecting her. You're rejecting the version of yourself that tolerated uncertainty, disrespect, or emotional games. Nope becomes the turning point where your value stops being negotiable. It becomes the point where your silence isn't avoidance, it's alignment. Most men don't understand this. Nope is not an argument, it's not an explanation, it's not a counterattack, it's the end of the conversation. It's the moment your actions declare, I will not abandon myself just to keep someone else comfortable. And when you choose that path, you stop seeking closure from her and start creating closure within yourself. You realize you don't need to chase something that's moving away from you. You don't need to fight for someone who stopped fighting for you. You don't need to cling to what isn't choosing you. Nope is liberation. It's the boundary she never expected you to set, and it's the moment the dynamic begins to shift in ways neither of you could have predicted. Because when a man withdraws his emotional investment with calmness and certainty, things start changing fast. The moment you went quiet, something subtle but seismic happened in the dynamic, something she never anticipated. Most men panic when a woman pulls away, but you didn't. You didn't chase. You didn't send just checking-in messages. You didn't fall into the predictable spiral she thought she could rely on. Your silence wasn't passive. It was disruptive. It broke the emotional pattern she was expecting. It created a space where her assumptions suddenly didn't match your reality. And here's the thing about that space. It turns into a mirror. When you stop over-communicating, she begins hearing her own thoughts louder. When you stop trying to fix things, she starts questioning why she expected you to. When you stop trying to hold everything together, she has to confront the fact that she might have been the one pulling it apart. Your silence becomes contrast, the before and after. Before, she felt certain about your reactions, about your emotional dependency, about her position in your life. After, she can't predict you anymore. The script she was following no longer works. And that unsettles people, because predictability is control. When a woman knows exactly how you'll respond, she holds the emotional advantage, but your calm withdrawal removes that advantage completely. Now, instead of you spinning, she starts spinning. Instead of you replaying the situation, she starts replaying it. Instead of you wondering what she's feeling, she starts wondering why you're so composed. Silence doesn't push her away, it pulls her inward. It forces reflection, it forces awareness, and whether she admits it out loud or not, she starts to feel the absence, not because she owns you, but because she never expected to lose the version of you who would have chased without question. Your silence restructures the dynamic by shifting the gravitational pull. Instead of your world revolving around her decision, she now has to face the possibility that she misjudged you. And that's when doubt enters her mind, not about you, but about herself, her actions, her choices, and what she thought she understood about your connection. This is where the story turns. This is where everything begins to unravel, not for you, but for her. What she never saw coming was the shift in your internal world, a shift so quiet yet so profound that it completely rerouted the course of your life. She expected you to be emotional, reactive, desperate to understand what changed, desperate to fix what broke, desperate to pull her back into your orbit. But instead you tapped into something older than heartbreak, older than dating dynamics, older than the noise of modern relationships. You tapped into a Stoic mindset, a way of thinking that removes the chaos and replaces it with clarity. This mindset doesn't come from coldness, it comes from discipline. It doesn't come from being detached from feeling. It comes from refusing to let feeling dictate your identity. In this mindset, you didn't ask, "How do I get her back?" You asked, "What does this moment require of me as a man?" And the answer wasn't chasing, pleading, over-explaining, or unraveling. It was stillness. It was acceptance. It was the understanding that you cannot control what she chooses, only how you respond. You stopped interpreting her distance as a threat. You started interpreting it as information. You stopped viewing her withdrawal as a wound. You started viewing it as data, a signal telling you exactly where to place your energy and where to pull it back. And in that shift, you stepped into a realm she didn't know you had access to. You became unshakable. You became calm in places where you once would have been chaotic. You stopped needing external reassurance because you built internal stability. You didn't need her to validate you because you reclaimed the power to validate yourself. And here's what most people never understand. The Stoic mindset doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you sovereign. It puts your emotional state back in your own hands, not in hers or anyone else's. When you embraced this way of thinking, you stopped being a character in her story and started becoming the author of your own. And nothing destabilizes assumptions more than a man who suddenly stops reacting and starts leading himself. When you didn't chase, the first thing she felt wasn't empowerment. It was surprise. A subtle flicker of confusion, almost too quick to notice, but it was there. Because in her mind, she had predicted your next moves before you even made them, and you made none of them. At first, she brushed it off, telling herself you were just giving her space, or playing it cool, or waiting for the right moment to come running back. But as the hours turned to days, and your silence stayed steady, something shifted inside her. Confusion turned into curiosity. Curiosity turned into irritation. Irritation turned into questioning. And questioning turned into a quiet, unfamiliar kind of discomfort. The kind that happens when someone realizes they misread a situation entirely. She starts wondering why you're so calm. She starts replaying the last conversation, analyzing every word, trying to figure out what she missed. She checks your social media not because she wants to reconnect, but because she wants to understand. She begins to feel the absence, not the absence of your presence, but the absence of your pursuit. That pursuit she assumed she deserved. That pursuit she relied on emotionally more than she realized. At first, she tells herself she doesn't care. Then she tells her friends she's fine. Then she says you're probably just busy. But underneath all that, she's unsettled because she expected you to act like every man who collapses under emotional pressure. And you didn't. And when something predictable becomes unpredictable, it forces introspection. Her mind starts filling with questions she never planned to ask. Why isn't he chasing? Did he stop caring? Did he see something in me he didn't like? Did I misjudge his feelings? Did I push too far? Was he more valuable than I realized? She won't say any of this out loud, not yet, but she feels it. And the irony is, the more she tries to ignore that rising discomfort, the louder it becomes. Because your silence doesn't just shift the dynamic, it shifts her self-perception. It makes her confront the possibility that she expected too much, assumed too much, and underestimated you completely. And that is the emotional turning point, not because you manipulated her, but because you removed the emotional safety net she thought she owned. Now, the pull she once had isn't guaranteed. Now, her mind is doing the chasing, not for you, but for answers, and that alone changes everything. While her mind is spinning, replaying, overanalyzing, and questioning everything she thought she knew about you, something entirely different is happening on your end, something she never accounted for, because she assumed you'd be frozen in place, waiting for her return. But your silence wasn't stagnation, it was evolution. In the time she expected you to crumble, you started rebuilding yourself brick by brick, step by step, breath by breath. You stopped staring at your phone and started staring at your future. You stopped wondering what she was doing and started wondering what you could become. You hit the gym not to distract yourself, but to sculpt the version of you that matches your inner discipline. You poured your energy back into your mission, your goals, your craft, not to prove anything to her, but to honor the man you're becoming. You started sleeping better, eating cleaner, moving with purpose. Your posture straightened, your voice leveled out, your presence deepened, your mind sharpened. You replaced emotional chaos with structure, routine, ambition, and peace. And the beautiful irony: the more you grew in silence, the more she felt the absence of the old you, the version who overextended, overexplained, and overpursued. She thought your silence meant you were waiting. She didn't realize it meant you were transforming. While she was busy checking her phone for a message you never sent, you were leveling up in ways she might not recognize when, or if, she ever comes back around. You discovered something men rarely notice until they step away. The breakup didn't weaken you, it unlocked you. It forced you inward, where your real strength was hiding beneath layers of emotional dependency you didn't even know you had. And as you evolved, something fundamental changed. You started seeing yourself clearly. You started valuing yourself differently. You started realizing that your energy, your attention, your presence, those are privileges, not entitlements. The man you are becoming? She didn't expect him, she didn't prepare for him, and she certainly never thought you'd outgrow the version of yourself who once chased her. But here you are, evolving in silence while she still thinks you're the same man she walked away from. And she has no idea that when silence becomes transformation, you don't go back. There comes a moment, subtle, delayed, and often unexpected, when it finally hits her. It doesn't strike like lightning. It doesn't explode like a revelation. It seeps in slowly, like a truth she tried to avoid but can't outrun anymore. It happens when she checks her phone and there's still nothing from you. It happens when she scrolls through old messages and realizes you haven't reached out in days, weeks, maybe longer. It happens when her friends ask if you two have talked, and she has to say nope. It happens when she catches herself wondering what you're doing, who you're becoming, and why the energy she once relied on has completely vanished. And that's when the realization settles in: you're not coming back. Not because you're bitter, not because you're playing games, but because the man she knew, the man who used to chase, the man who used to overinvest, the man who used to make her the center of his emotional universe, doesn't exist anymore. She thought your silence was temporary. She thought your detachment was a phase. She thought eventually you'd crack under the weight of missing her. But instead, you got stronger. Your world expanded. Your ambitions sharpened. Your peace became non-negotiable. And she starts to realize something she never prepared for. She may have misjudged your strength entirely. That's when the discomfort turns into regret. Not always regret for losing you, but regret for losing the version of herself she was when she had your presence, your attention, your stability. Women don't always miss the man. They often miss the emotional security he gave. And now that security is gone, not stolen, not taken back in anger, simply redirected inward toward your growth, your mission, your life. And that's what flips the power dynamic completely, because now, if she ever reaches out again, it won't be from a place of control. It won't be from expecting you to chase. It will be from a place of curiosity, humility, and realization. She'll know, consciously or not, that reconnecting with you is no longer guaranteed, that your energy isn't an automatic yes, that you're no longer the man who waits by the door. You are the man who walks his own path, a path she can only join if you choose to open that door. And that's the shift that changes everything. Not the silence, not the distance, not the absence, but the moment she realizes that the chase she expected has reversed, and you aren't running after anyone. You're walking forward with purpose. So here you are, brother, not the man she expected, not the man she predicted, not the man she assumed she could pull like a puppet on strings, but the man who chose himself, the man who let silence speak instead of scrambling to fill it, the man who understood that chasing someone who's walking away is nothing more than abandoning your own soul. And now, standing on the other side of the storm, you can finally see it clearly. She thought you'd crumble. She thought you'd panic. She thought you'd collapse under the weight of losing her. But instead, you rose, you stabilized, you reclaimed your dignity one quiet moment at a time. This is what it means to walk the Stoic path. Not to be cold, not to be detached from life, but to anchor yourself so deeply in self-respect that nothing and no one can pull you off your center. When you master your emotions, when you embrace silence, when you respond with a calm nope instead of emotional chaos, you stop being reactive and start being powerful. And whether she comes back or stays gone, whether the chapter reopens or remains closed, whether her regret becomes action or merely a quiet internal echo, it doesn't define you anymore. Because you're moving in alignment with something bigger than romance, bigger than validation, bigger than fear. You're moving in alignment with your purpose. And the world responds differently to a man who walks with purpose. So if you felt this message, if you recognize your own growth in this story, if you're ready to keep rising and becoming the most disciplined, grounded version of yourself, then brother, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications to become an official Stoic soldier. And drop the phrase "I choose my path" in the comments to seal this new mindset. Thank you for watching, thank you for your strength, and thank you for walking this path with me. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and stay in command of your life. Until next time, stay stoic.